Welcome into OutKick the show. I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis. I hope all of you are having a fantastic Wednesday. I have been down in Key West having an amazing time. You can probably see I've got a little bit of a tan. I am back just in time for Christmas. Hope you enjoy the Clay and Buck show today. I've got a bunch to dive into right off the top here. Let me say this in no uncertain terms. The College Football Playoff Committee announced new rules because they're all different sorts of issues suddenly with COVID, okay? Everybody is testing positive for this new Omicron variant, and it doesn't matter if you've been vaccinated, double vaccinated, triple vaccinated, boosted, quadruple times, whatever it might be, people are testing positive like crazy. Texas A&M is not going to be able to play in the Gator Bowl because they had so many positives on their team. And the College Football Playoff came out with some new rules. And they said, hey, if you can't play on December 31st, Alabama or Cincinnati, Michigan or Georgia, then you have to forfeit. If both teams can't play, then you will have a default national championship game. Only one game would be played. This is all wrong. So I want to be straightforward. I want to be transparent. I want everybody watching right now to understand what I am saying here. Everyone should be able to play, period. I don't care if you are positive for COVID or not. It is time to get back to some form of normalcy way past time, okay? Guys have been playing with the flu for generations, okay? Sick as a dog, throwing up. Michael Jordan burnished his iconic image with the flu game. Now, I don't know exactly what the cause of Jordan's illness was, but my point here is we got guys right now. The Washington football team just had this happen, which I couldn't even believe it. Did you see this? They had a guy that they initially reported had COVID. And then they said, oh, wait, sorry. Turns out it's actually the flu, and he's able to play. The Florida Gator football team, before they played against South Carolina, think about this for a minute now. The Florida Gator football team had 20 to 30 players with the flu. They were able to fly from Gainesville to Columbia, South Carolina, and play in the game, even though they had the flu. If they had had COVID, they would have had to quarantine for 10 days. It doesn't make any sense. These are young, healthy athletes. There have been zero health-related conditions, basically for any athletes in the world from COVID, okay? It's past time to say this is never going to leave. It is endemic. It is going to be here for the rest of mankind, probably. At some point, we have to start treating it like any other virus that is unlikely to kill people. All right? Will there be some people who have awful results from COVID who are in athletics? Probably. But there are people who have awful results from the flu who are otherwise young and healthy every year. When we're to the point, and this is where we are statistically, where every single NFL, NBA, NHL, or Major League Baseball player, or college football player, or college basketball player is under more danger driving, if they have a car, to and from practice on campus than they are from COVID. Why in the world are we continuing to overreact like this? Again, look deep into my eyes. I want this to be as clear. Read the words coming out of my lips, or listen to the words coming out of my lips. No more COVID cancellations. No more COVID ineligibilities. No more COVID testing. If somebody is too sick to play for any reason, that's their choice. But the idea that we have to treat COVID different from the flu for college or pro athletics makes no sense. This policy that is in place right now for college football makes no sense. It's broken. It is thoroughly illogical. It's time for adults who are capable of utilizing functional brains to start to make decisions. Guess what? Your boy is one of them. And guess what? I can save you a lot of money, up to $800 a year if you switch to Pure Talk right now. I'm a Pure Talk customer. I wouldn't tell you to use a service that I wasn't 100% completely happy with. You can make the switch today as well. With Pure Talk's 30-day risk-free guarantee, you have absolutely nothing to lose. You can get unlimited talk, text, 6 gigs of data, just $30 a month, and you can get hooked up by going to puretalk.com and shop for the plan and the phone that's right for you. Then enter the promo code OutKick. You'll save an additional 50% off your first month. Plus, you can save on a new phone. That's puretalk.com, promo code OutKick. Disclaimer, some restrictions apply. See site for details. There you go. So that is my take on the college football playoff. Also, this is my take on COVID madness in general. The NFL, the NBA, everyone out there who is too dumb in sports media. You notice how Cole Beasley tested positive? Cole Beasley's not vaccinated. And people lost their minds like, how dare he be out for the biggest game of the year? It doesn't matter. Whether you are vaccinated or unvaccinated, your chances of testing positive for COVID with this new Omicron variant are evidently massively high. It doesn't matter whether you are vaccinated or unvaccinated. We got to recognize that everybody's basically in the same boat and that it doesn't make sense to continue to have a different policy for vaccinated or unvaccinated. That goes for the NFL and the NBA. It also goes for the idiot mayors of New York City, Chicago, Boston, LA, Washington, D.C., and San Francisco, where they have COVID vaccine mandates. A couple of people pointing out, really smartly, I think, in New York City, you can be vaccinated, but you can still obviously be positive for COVID and you can spread COVID. You can have a negative test and not be able to go into a restaurant in New York City, but if you have a vaccine card, you can go in even if you have COVID. What sense does that make? None. None. It's all complete and total nonsense. I was just down in Key West. I appreciate all of your suggestions. I had a phenomenal time down there with my wife. I flew and continue to fly. I am unvaccinated. I have had COVID. I may have had COVID more than one time. I don't know. I know that I have COVID antibodies. There are very few people who have been exposed to more people during the fall than me. I was on an OutKick college football bus tour. I shook hands everywhere. I was in crowded bars and restaurants everywhere, all over the South for the entire fall. I rarely, if ever, wear a mask. In fact, the only place that I wear a mask is at the airport. Let me just say this, by the way. I was at the airport yesterday, Key West Airport. I've got a coffee in my hand that I am drinking from, okay? Literally in my hand, drinking from it. Woman, gate agent, comes by and she says, "Sir, you have to put your mask up on your face between sips." I said, "I'm drinking from the can that is in my hand right now, and you're telling me that I'm going to make everybody else here safe by lowering and lifting my mask as I am taking a drink." This is childlike idiocy. There is no logical basis in fact whatsoever for the policies that are being put in place. Dr. Fauci came out and he said, hey, if one of my family members was unvaccinated, I wouldn't allow them to attend the Christmas party or the holiday party. Why? Vaccinated and unvaccinated can spread the virus just as easily. In fact, the latest data out of England is actually pretty interesting. Now, this is still early, but the data coming out of England reflects, and I want you to hear this, and let me get to it. The triple vaccinated are 4.5 times as likely to test positive for Omicron as the unvaccinated. This is from England. The double vaccinated are 2.3 times as likely to have an Omicron infection. And so, this is why everything that Joe Biden is telling you makes no sense, all right? The NBA is 97% vaccinated. The NFL is 95% vaccinated. The NHL is 100% vaccinated, yet all of those sports leagues are setting all-time highs for COVID infection rates. This is why Joe Biden's idea that we can vaccinate our way out of COVID is 100% false. It's a lie. Because if we could, then the 95% in the NFL, the 97% in the NBA, and the virtually 100% in the NHL would not be setting all-time COVID highs. And I want to ask you this as well. If these vaccines work at all, why are the rates for COVID infection higher now than they were last year with no vaccines at all? Let me repeat that. Last year during football season, 0 COVID vaccines. The rates for infection were infinitely lower. If these vaccines work at a very high rate, or namely hardly at all in stopping spread or anything else, how can anyone explain to me that we are at all-time highs despite nearly 100% vaccination rates among young, healthy players? So I'd love to hear Dr. Fauci answer that question. I'd love to hear Joe Biden answer that question. I'd love to hear media actually press them on questions such as these. I don't know about you, watching the stock market these days can feel pretty nerve-wracking. All-time highs, up and down a lot, the latest COVID infection rates skyrocketing, falling, whatever it might be. And why not find ways, especially with inflation surging, that you can get an incredible return? You know, art has outpaced the S&P 500 from 1995 to 2020. It's no wonder that many billionaires have been investing a lot of their wealth in artwork for generations. Well, Masterworks is a $1 billion financial tech startup unlocking the once exclusive art market for everybody. You can go get a Picasso. You can get a Banksy. You can have a portion of those paintings in your portfolio because you can buy a portion of those paintings and be able to enjoy their asset value increase. This is really cool. Masterworks gives you an opportunity to go look at all these artworks and buy a fractional share of this art. You can get started at masterworks.art/outkick. Again, masterworks.art/outkick, and you can buy a portion of some of the most popular art anywhere in the world. And as that artwork appreciates, you may not be able to buy the whole thing because you're not a millionaire and you're not a billionaire, but you can invest in the same way that all of these incredible rich people are doing with their own money. This is really, really cool. And I encourage all of you right now. I checked it out. I was blown away by how cool this idea is. Masterworks.art/outkick. That is masterworks.art/outkick. I want to tell you, Israel. Well, so let me just start here. I was just looking at ESPN. Do you know that every single story that is up on ESPN right now is COVID related? Texas A&M out of the Gator Bowl. Luka Doncic in protocols. NFLPA Prez, the NFL nearly canceled 3 games. Eagles coach tests positive, Sirianni, for COVID. Celtics bring Joe Johnson back. He's coming back because of COVID issues. Alabama assistants O'Brien, Marone test positive. Nets, Blazers, Raps, Bulls postponed for lack of players. Every single current ESPN timeline is directly COVID related. This is madness. Stop testing. Let everybody play. If you don't feel well enough to play, then don't play. That is the standard that we have had in place forever. Engagement season is full swing. You know, I was down in Rosemary Beach for Thanksgiving, and I was working out on my elliptical, and the guy next to me owned 50 different marriage venues. We were all talking about it. He was saying, man, we're super busy now in 2021. 2022 is going to have more weddings than any year in the history of America. And right now, I got to tell you, getting the right ring, your boy's been married 17 years. I've got a great ring. I love the ring that I have, but a lot of men don't spend much time thinking about the wedding rings that they're going to get. And that's why you need a manly band. You're going to spend a lot of time learning all about the women's wedding ring, but how many men actually spend any time to think about their own ring? That's why you need to get started. Go to manlybands.com/clay and figure out what kind of ring you want. You need to know your size. You need to know what sort of creative and customizable ring you might want to get. With Manly Bands, get a 30-day exchange policy. They ship the rings for free. You can try them on. And right now, they have an incredible sale that is underway. If you go to manlybands.com/clay, you can get 25% off. Let me show you their logo. These guys do fantastic work. manlybands.com/clay. You can use the promo code CLAY for your husband, for your fiance. Maybe you want to make sure that you are prepared yourself for your own wedding. Go to manlybands.com/clay and you get 25% off. You will be glad that you did. Did you see the lies from, by the way, CNN on Jesse Waters? Dr. Fauci demanded that he be fired. Did you actually listen to the clips? I hate when quotes are taken out of context. It happens to me all the time. People grab one sentence and they're like, oh, did you see Clay Travis said? I was like, well, did you listen to the whole argument? Because the whole argument actually is thoroughly logical and reasonable. And most of the time the answer is no. They just look at the headline. They don't look at the overall statement. Well, we just got done with Clay and Buck. And we played the full audio of what Jesse Waters said about Dr. Fauci. He's 100% right. Fauci is a lying fraud, and he deserves to be held accountable for the fact that our tax dollars went to gain-of-function research in a Wuhan, China virology lab. That needs to happen. And most media will not hold Dr. Fauci accountable because he only does CNN, MSNBC, New York Times, and the Washington Post, all the places that sort of gently caress him and refuse to actually hold him accountable for what he said, all right? So, this was in no way crazily inflammatory. There was nothing that deserved for this situation to move to where it did, which is where Dr. Fauci demanded that Jesse Waters be fired. This is why you cannot trust CNN. This is why they are so fundamentally dishonest, and also why you can't trust Fauci, because they're working together in concert. I'm going to be back in one moment because I want to go grab one of my favorite things to do, read newspapers. You guys know this. I'm old school in the way that I continue to consume media, right? I've said this for years, but I start off my day every day grabbing the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times. And I want to hold this New York Times article up for you because I think you guys can see this. And the headline here, lead editorial on the New York Times page, is "Do not close the schools again." You know the worm is turning here when suddenly the New York Times lead editorial, I'm holding it up for everybody to see, "Do not close the schools again." And they point out what your boy's been telling you for a long time, that the weekly hospitalization rate for school-age children is about 1 in 100,000. That stayed remarkably consistent. Kids are not in danger from COVID. And so they say that schools need to open. They point out something significant. Black and Hispanic students were twice as likely as white kids to be remote and have no real-time access to a teacher. And as schools reopened, I'm reading directly from the New York Times, 2% of majority white districts stayed closed, while 18% of majority black districts stayed remote, and nearly 1 in 4 majority Hispanic schools stayed closed. I told you this last year. I said everybody is arguing about wanting equity. Not even equality anymore, equity. And what's happening with schools is the least equitable outcome of our lives. Poor minority kids are more likely to be unable to be in school than rich white kids, and the people who are making it happen are Democrats. Democratic teachers unions and also mayors and governors. Blue states went and treated people who were minorities the worst. The kids that had the least ended up paying the most. Also, embedded in this verdict, do not close the schools again. We should make masking in schools voluntary rather than mandatory. 2 years of masking has negative impact and is short-sighted. Kids are resilient, but not endlessly resilient. They say what I've been saying for over a year, what I went and talked to my school board about in August. There's no data to support masking, and schools should have never closed. This is the biggest public policy failure for the United States since Vietnam War. Now, the other thing I was going to say is that over 1 million people in the past year have moved from blue states to red states. California now has lost population 2 straight years after California didn't lose population from 1850 all the way to 2020. 2 straight years of losing population. What's happening is people are fleeing New York, California, and Illinois. Those are the 3 states that lost the most net out-migrations. And they're moving instead, they're moving to Florida, to Texas, to Tennessee, to Georgia, to North Carolina, to South Carolina, to Utah, to Arizona. Why is that happening? Why are people leaving blue states primarily to move to red states? Because they're embracing freedom. And I just want to hit you with this as you think about it. We had a good discussion with Carol Markowitz on Friday on the radio show. She's a New York Post writer. She's moving from New York to Florida. She made a great point. She said, if the COVID policies in red states were truly so dangerous, wouldn't people be leaving red states to move to blue states? In other words, if you were a parent and you were looking around and you were thinking, my goodness, no one is wearing a mask here. Oh my God, I can't believe it, but my kids are being able to go to school. All of these restaurants are open. All these bars are open. All of these football stadiums, soccer stadiums, basketball, and hockey, all of them are 100%. All of them are 100% open. If it were really unsafe, wouldn't we see 1 million people moving from red states to blue states? What you're seeing is the opposite. People realize the threat from COVID has been exaggerated, used for political purposes, and that is why they are fleeing overwhelmingly red states and making the move to, fleeing overwhelmingly from blue states to red states. All right. It's the holidays. You deserve a gift. How about a gift that keeps on giving you joy and comfort every day, all year long? A gift that looks as good as it feels, and a gift that will actually pay for itself in terms of how much more productive you'll be at work. I'm talking about giving yourself the gift of an X chair. I absolutely love my X chair, most comfortable ergonomic chair I've ever used, and also a great looking piece of furniture. Not only is it a great looking office chair, but it can either warm or cool your back. That's right, it heats or it cools. Can your chair do that in your office? Probably not. That's why X Chair has got a holiday gift for you. You can save $100 off your X Chair just by purchasing it at xchairclay.com. That's the letter X, chair, CLAY.com. X Chair has a 30-day guarantee of complete comfort, and you can finance your purchase for as little as $30 a month. Go to xchairclay.com and save xchairclay.com. A couple more stories here. Joe Manchin has shot down the Build Back Better. That happened on Sunday. I found out about it as I was waiting to go through the Ernest Hemingway home in Key West. By the way, Ernest Hemingway home in Key West, incredible opportunity, really cool tour. Also, the little White House down in Key West for Harry Truman. Very cool tour there as well. Encourage you, if you get an opportunity to go to Key West, to go to both of those locations. But the news broke on Sunday morning as I was sitting on the front porch of the Hemingway home, and I have to tell you guys, this was the right move. Credit to Joe Manchin. I don't know how he stays in the Democrat Party, given the fact that everybody immediately attacked him and said he was racist. But what he did was pretty straightforward. He said, I want to know the full cost over 10 years of what Democrats are trying to implement. Instead of it being hidden and not being a full cost, which is what was going on, this is a $5 trillion bill that they were trying to masquerade as a $2 trillion bill. It's not paid for. It's going to add $3 trillion to our national debt. Unfunded government mandates are a disaster, particularly when inflation is already running at 6.8%. And Joe Manchin made the right decision. Credit to him for standing up for West Virginia's people, for making a decision that they would support, given the fact that they voted for Donald Trump by almost 40 points in West Virginia, the biggest state supporting Trump out there. If Manchin's going to run again in 2024, there's no way he gets reelected based on these extravagant government spending plans, considering we've already spent in the neighborhood of what we spent on World War II to fight COVID. We don't need more government money just flooding into the overall system. Finally, told you guys it was coming. The booster is the third shot, right? A lot of people now getting the third shot. You're not going to be considered fully vaccinated many places unless you have gotten your booster. Where we are headed is pretty clear. A fourth shot is now being given to people who are 60 or older in Israel. By the spring, in the United States, we're going to be on our fourth different COVID shot. If you want to get them, and I encouraged my parents to get them, they're over 75 years old, it can make a lot of sense, okay? But for most of us, the idea that you need 4 different COVID shots in the space of roughly a year is utterly nonsensical. There is nothing to support it. That is the truth. I am Clay Travis. DBAP, unless you need to SBAP. This has been OutKick the show. I'll see you guys tomorrow as we get ready for Thursday night football. I appreciate all of you and hope you're having a great Christmas, great holiday season. I'll also be hosting Clay and Buck tomorrow solo. Thank y'all. See you then.